My name is Frank Perdomo, co-founder and principal of Benefits Concierge Group and a few other companies. And this is my story, everybody, to tell. I'm going to give you guys, and for those that do actually, because I've been asked so many times, I'm going to bring you into my world of where I started and this journey of where I am today. A lot of people have asked me, and what have I, what's a day like in an investor's world, in an entrepreneur's world? And I'm going to bring everybody into that world and what it's taken for me to get from letter A to not even the end of the alphabet, because I'm only in the beginning of still the alphabet, and so much work for us to do. So this begins my world of sharing with everybody in the world. Okay. I think people know that I have a lot of discipline, and that I think people have asked, "Do you even sleep, Frank?" Because you seem to send us messages, text, emails at all hours of the day. Do you sleep? When do you rest? How do you come up with things? How do you innovate? And the thing is that obviously, listen, there's a lot of discipline. I'm a student to the world. I'm not the solution to the world. I'm a student to the world. And I'm going to remain a student to life. I'm never going to change that particular mindset that I have. And I think I've been learning from other mentors as I surround myself with people that have been in their own right very successful themselves, where we either complement each other in certain disciplines, but then I also get an insight of them into what makes them successful. And I'm tweaking my own self to understand what DNA or what qualities need to take place for that. I started this business my initial business, which is Benefits Concierge Group, a health insurance brokerage. Started it from nothing out of my apartment. It was just a passion and a vision that I had to serve. And I'm going to use that word. It wasn't to do sales. It was to serve community, people that I felt were just very underprivileged. And I needed to make sure that myself as a human being, alongside the world, which is full of humans, we took care and we had a responsibility to make sure that we took care and we had the ability to. And that's how my business and my passion started for that. My business is called Benefits Concierge Group, my initial business, which I started with my wife, Paola Munera, who some may know and some may not. Okay, she's a little more on the shy side. So I try to show a little bit of my face, but I wish she was the one showing her face, because she's the beauty of in terms of her look, she's the beauty of the agency. Sticking back to what I was saying before, we started our business out of a brokerage. And I'm going to use this word. A lot of people kind of cringe with the word I'm about to use, the word failure. A lot of people say, "Oh, failure, I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to fail." And I'm like, afraid of what? Failure is just a journey that we all have to take, because from failures, guess what we get? We get lessons. We get lessons on how to better ourselves. And if we can learn how to change our mindset to understand that and not be afraid of it and embrace it as part of the journey to success, you're going to be so much better. But it's a first step that we all have to take. I've never been afraid of failure. I've always taken it as a learning and a stepping stone for me to just get better and understand what I did wrong so I can better it down the road. And that has been, to me, a life lesson for me in failures that I have had in my past. And a culmination to where I am today. They always say that people succeed in their 40s. My business started when I was 45. I'm 54 now. And in 9 years, I've been able to build something very nice where we stayed in touch, not with the business aspect, but more with a solution or a way that we were going to give back to the community. And just from that particular passion came about this concept of Benefits Concierge Group, which we were able to prove that by serving public and serving it correctly and understanding what people's needs were, and just having that day-to-day and that understanding of what just humanity needs in general, business will take off. Unfortunately, today's environment, it's business first and kind of that human element second. To me, it was the other way around. It was human first, not transaction, understanding how we were going to be socially responsible. And that little by little has been kind of the secret sauce of how our business developed. Always. As a matter of fact, great question, because this may sound bad, because I am a corporation nowadays myself, but I'm not really a corporate advocate. It's not my cup of tea. I don't fall into that particular structure. I'm a lot more free. I love my mind to be so free in the way I think, the way my heart plays a role in how I interact and how I conduct business. So the corporate environment, although there's a need for it because there is structure behind it, so don't get me wrong, because I had to become a very structured business myself. But there's such an element to it that because there's such a rigid structure sometimes that it doesn't let you really be yourself and really bring out maybe the best of your passions out there. And I've been able to really implement that piece where I empower everybody that comes across my agency, comes across any of my companies, to be themselves. Show your heart. Let the public know who you are, what it is you can offer them. And do it in such a genuine way. I sometimes think that, in the corporate environment, people are just looking at skills. The corporate environment is just a job, but not necessarily what people may be passionate about doing. But when you're able to align passion and your heart with what you want to do, you could be so much more successful, even under a very corporate umbrella. I've been able to do that with a very small business, and it's worked for us. So a little piece of kind of taking you back a little bit of who I am. So, good question. I'd have to go back because I think one of my most exciting experiences when it came to corporate America was when I got into the technology area of a cell phone company, and I was working business to business. It was such a fun time. It was I would say it's probably my only really fun time in corporate America. But sometimes good things tend to end very quickly, much quicker than you really want them to. What I was able to do from learning that aspect of technology, cell phones, business to business, communication, all of that, was I was able to branch that out, understand the intricacies of that business. And I was able to form my own retail cell phone store. I was able to do consulting from a cell phone side to business. And that was kind of my first experience in something that, one, I enjoyed. So here again, that passion, right? Something you enjoy, you're having fun with. I was able to connect with that and then bring in solutions to, in this particular case, it was more business to business than anything else. That was probably my first taste of a successful venture that I did. I've had some other unsuccessful ventures, but once again, I embrace failure and I'm okay with that because I've been able to take part of my successes, bits and pieces here, and part of my failures on other bits and pieces. And now today, I've stirred the pot I'm in my 50s now, but I stirred the pot in my mid-40s to start this concept called Benefits Concierge Group, which is a health insurance brokerage, right? Dealing with the senior population. Now we're dealing with everybody when it comes to health insurance. And, this is a culmination or a result of everything, to your question, everything I've done in the past, whether they're successes or failures that I've had. But that was probably my first taste of something, one, I enjoyed. I loved it. It was fun. I loved getting up in the morning. I was motivated. I was inspired by it. So just one of my first taste of success. And if you want to call it success, it's like, what is success, right? Is it money? Most people will answer that. To me, it wasn't that. To me, it was more getting up in the morning and feeling motivated to do something, because most people have to wake up and they're trying to find their inspiration and their motivation to do it. I enjoyed waking up and doing that. I enjoy waking up today doing what I do. I found the passion behind it. My heart is in the game. I love it, right? It's tougher when you have to get up and you have to find that maybe money's your motivator. Money isn't what wakes me up in the morning. And I've got plenty of cash flow coming in. It's not what wakes me up in the morning. It's how am I going to impact when I get up? How am I going to make a difference? And I got to make sure that that's such a priority every day when I wake up. It's to make sure that I'm able to impact when I go out there. And I was able to impact in this particular case when it came to cell phones, a solution for businesses, how they can communicate with clients internally, just to make sure that business was always fluid and the communication was always crisp. So I really enjoyed doing that. Once again, that passion was really aligned with doing what I was doing. So, well, I just mentioned money definitely isn't what wakes me up. That's not. Success for me is, how do I make a difference? How do I make somebody smile? Somebody that might not have the resources to get ahead potentially, for whatever reason, they don't have the resources to be able to get the right education, or me being able to at least contribute even in the most smallest way is how I feel I'm successful, me personally. And a lot of people may disagree with me, but that's a common denominator in myself surrounding myself with very successful entrepreneurs, investors, that have become mentors for me now. I listen to them. That's the one common denominator we all tend to have. The money isn't what's waking us up. It's we can use the money as a resource to now go impact. And how do we go impact now? How do we make that difference? And to who are we making that difference? And if you can find that particular angle, that's a joy. That's a reason you wake up in the morning. And some people have questioned me. I've had people say, Frank, you're doing this because of the money. And I'm like, no, to get to know me, because it's not. I've had my success and I've had my failures. And the one thing I realized going back to my early days of entrepreneurship and investing and all that, money wasn't what was going to give me happiness. You can have the nice cars. You can have the nice watches. You can have the nice attires. So what? You're now trying to find the next big thing because this already exhausted itself and you're trying to find maybe that next high. And that next high isn't found in the material stuff. There's no substance behind that. And I'll be the first to tell you that. Because I've got all the brand name stuff. I've got the nice cars. I got all that. I don't show the public that because who cares? I'll tell you what I don't mind sharing is how I made a difference to somebody that didn't have food on the table or somebody that didn't have a home, and how I can make a difference for them, how I can educate somebody. That to me is my definition of success. Some people may disagree, some people will agree, but that's the mindset we today have to now start shifting to. And unfortunately, people are still stuck in this particular paradigm and this pillar of, oh, money's the happiness, money's the movement, money is what's going to make me happy. You're going to realize, and hopefully you realize not too late, that really isn't it. It's more this. This is substance right here. This is the human side of who we are. And I was able to find it, and thank God, I think a lot has to do with my own values at home, who my parents are, the people I surround myself with, which is extremely important for me, who's around me, who influences me that way. It's, makes a big difference in who we are as people. Of course, I think my values and how I was brought up plays a huge role in terms of why I am the way I am. But I was able to season it and tweak it and perfect it to some degree. I've been able to shine it through the years. You know what I mean? I'm in my 50s now, and you mature throughout life. When the way I was thinking in my 20s is not the way I'm thinking right now in my 40s and 50s. It wasn't. So you end up maturing throughout life. And I think you bring that maturity into the way you conduct business. And people will know when you're honest, when you're transparent. And I've been told so many times, Frank, you seem so passionate about the way you express yourself about what you do. And I said, I'm extremely passionate. I love it. That wakes me up in the morning. It's not the money or the percent. Trust me, that's not getting me up in the morning. So being part of corporate America, so I'm going to take you back, me living in Florida from 2002 all the way to 2013. I ended up coming back to New York, and I ended up in corporate America, back in an industry that I had started my career originally back after college in health insurance. And I came back in a different angle, which was Medicare, seniors, low-income population, all of that. Didn't know anything about the business. A buddy of mine brought me in, good friend of mine, was a VP of a small up-and-coming company in the New York City area. And he says, hey, listen, you're gonna learn this aspect of the game. It's government programs, underserved community. And I said, all right, great. So these are the buzzwords. He says, I want you to come back to New York. Come back from Florida. And I was already looking at bridge my way back to be close to my family again in New York. Joined this company, and it brought me back to, I'm going to take you back to my college days, and I'm going to take you into what I learned back in college in personal finance. Poorest population is the senior community, your retirement community. And I didn't understand it at the age of 18, 19. I didn't really understand what they meant by that. Fast forward into my 40s, I was about 42 when I came back, right? And dealing with the Medicare population, which is your retirement community. And what we would say, people living on fixed income, Social Security. I didn't understand that when I was in college, but now I understood it. Because now on a day-to-day, I started as a consultant, a benefits consultant for people that needed Medicare benefits. And I'm dealing with them and now dialoguing one-on-one, understanding who they are, understanding their incomes. And in New York, everybody knows that New York probably stands out as one of the most expensive cities or states to live in. And here we have these seniors with these very fixed incomes. I'm not understanding how they're surviving. They're like magicians, in my opinion, on how they survive on such limited income. And I was like, wow. So that was one of my first impacts, right? That was kind of hit me hard at that point. And I'm like, all right, but I'm learning now. I'm going through this corporate structure of dealing with the Medicare population and everything. What I didn't realize was this, and this is, I think, the biggest turning point for me, is that I'm here working, once again, under a corporate structure, much of an advocate of, because I can't be creative, I can't be me. And I'm dealing with this particular population with a company that's got a certain product. And if we all understand what people's needs are, we have to understand what people need. You can't just sell or dump a product into people. You have to understand what they need first to even know if you have a solution for them. I always felt I didn't have the right solution for them. But understand that I was an employee with this product set, and this is what I had to meet a quota with to sell. And I'm going to use the word sell, right? Sales. I felt very uncomfortable, and to me that started to, little by little, it started to grow as a negative for me. It didn't settle in right. I actually felt me as a human being, and this may sound kind of an oxymoron at the end of the day, I felt so uncomfortable. I felt I was committing a crime, committing a sin, for anybody that might be spiritual out there, because I am, in putting a product, because I had a salary and a quota to meet every month, and knowing that that product wasn't going to meet their particular needs. But I had a job to do legally, and I had a quota to meet every month. And this is something I had to go out and figure out how to do. It started to, little by little, eat me apart as a human being that I was. I started to become very uncomfortable with it. At first, it was a journey for me. I'm learning Medicare, I'm learning these products, getting back into the industry again. So I was excited, no big deal, right? Started to get really passionate about it. But as time went by, it started to actually hurt me. Started to do more damage on me as an individual. To me, that was a huge turning point, because now, if you want to know how entrepreneurs think, and I'll bring you into the world of an entrepreneur, and you're going to hear this from every entrepreneur out there. If you want to be successful, you have to first identify the problem. And maybe you don't have the solution, but at least think of what some of the solutions could be to that problem. And then bring it out. Start offering it. Because whatever your resolutions may be or your solutions may be, may still hit a market or people that it could work for. But you got to identify the problem first and then come out with certain solutions for it. I only had one company and one solution. And as they say, the shoe's not going to fit everybody out there, right? To me, that was one of my biggest turning points to why, and I found it very powerful that when I decided to branch out, I think God did the right thing for me, because I applied for certain companies and nobody was giving me an opportunity. And to me, I just said, you know what? These doors are closing for a reason. And I'm a big human being of faith. And I said, there's a reason why I don't fit in that particular, that's not my roadmap. And I said, you know what? I'm going to branch out. I told my wife, I said, I'm going to branch out. I think our calling is to become independent. And I'm going to use the term, become a broker, independent broker. I'm already licensed. But now my most powerful thing, and the thing that I was going to be able to leverage was, because I understood my limitations here, but if I got out of the corporate structure and now I can run my business compliantly, but I would have the power of a portfolio, more companies to offer. But now I was going to represent who? Not the company, because I'm not employed anymore, not a brand. I was going to now represent the client and their needs. And that was so impactful for me. I try to convey that to a lot of people so that they understand the position that we as brokers, as agencies, the impact that we could really make out there if we understand that. And I took that and I ran with it, because I understood that that was the power I had. Now, I added more flavor to the business. That's just product. And I had started to surround myself with the right people. And then we started to create process. But the important thing for me was understanding the people part of it. Understand how I was going to go above and beyond, not just offering product. And understanding the person in front of me. And I always tell people in my business, can you do the right thing for the community out there? If you're serving, can you do the right thing? And they're like, of course I'm going to get the answer I'm going to get, right? It's going to be a yes. Yes, of course I could do the right thing. I said, let me ask the question a little differently. I know you're going to tell me you could do the right thing, but do you understand what that means? I'm going to go deeper. We have a round table here, and you have a potential senior client who has very little income. And today, you're talking to them, You're an independent agent, and guess what? They have the right health plan today. And you just spend 2 hours to know that if you can't switch them from one health plan to another, you're not going to get paid for your 2 hours. I said, can you do the right thing and just leave them where they're at, knowing you're not going to get paid? I said, that's doing the right thing. And I'm going to take it a step even further, I tell them. Can you find out from them if there's any way you can help them, not from a health plan standpoint, but maybe you can help them access government programs that exist out there that they maybe don't know how to navigate the system to get or obtain, which you're not going to get paid for doing. That's doing the right thing. That's taking it to a bigger element. That's being impactful. That's making a difference. That's being positive. That's giving back. So I use a lot of words like being humanitarian, VIP, giving this particular population that doesn't have a big income and giving them VIP service because they can't pay for it. So now I'm going to take you to the name of my business. It's called Benefits because we offer benefits. The word concierge, Benefits Concierge Group. Concierge was the most important word that I had in my business because the word group is all of us being impactful. But the word concierge was us giving this low-income population, going back to my college days when I didn't understand that was the poorest population in the US, taking them and us serving them with no strings attached. You don't have to pay me, no transaction. I'm just going to help you. I'm going to help. I'm going to serve you. That's where I started to realize it. But it's such a journey to even get to that. And I'm so connected with my heart. My heart is so connected in what I do. I'm just very passionate. I told you I wake up in the morning, not because of the money I'm going to make. I'm going to wake up in the morning because of how I'm going to help people, how I'm going to serve them out there. And that was my way of connecting the dots and understanding that the corporate side wasn't going to work for me. And that this side, I was going to be able to leverage and be on my own, creative. How was I going to help? And as a human being, that's how I give back. You have to take a risk. And that's something that a lot of people are afraid to do. I'm going to take you on a little journey because for anybody that gets into business, at some point, a risk is taken. Whether you realize it or not, a risk is always taken. Because there's always going to be something that can get hurt because of a journey you're about to take, whether it's starting your own business. So I'm going to take you back because I don't share this often, but I'm going to take you back. And I'm going to say something very funny because I say this story and my beautiful wife hates that I tell this story. But I have to say it because it's what's made a difference in who we are today. It's huge. So here's the risk that we took. I get married outside the US to somebody from my homeland, and I bring her into the States. And like any immigrant, because I'm an immigrant myself in this country, okay? Except I've been here since I was 3 months old. So I've been a part of the system here. But for any immigrant that comes in much later in life, adapting to the system is tough. And for some, they don't understand how they're going to fit into the system. And I remember I'm going to take you back to 2014. I'm still working in corporate America. I'm struggling. And my wife had just arrived, right? We're going to 2015. My wife is going to try to figure out, and I'm the breadwinner. My wife is fairly new in this country. And my wife is trying to figure out how she's going to adapt to the system. And I remember seeing a flyer that she put together because she's a computer engineer of how she was going to teach others computer science. And I saw this, and one thing I understood about her, and this is why I'm going to later on take you on a different journey in the success of our business. I'm seeing my wife who's not a marketer. She's not a salesperson. She's an engineer. And engineers have certain qualities about them that are special in their own way. I'm not an engineer, but this quality is about that particular kind of individual that's special, right? So when I saw that she was going to try to promote herself kind of from a sales aspect, it hurt me. I was like, wow. So I remember having a kind of like a powwow, heart to heart with the wife. And I said, why don't you do this? This is the business I'm in. I work for this company. I said, why don't you take out the license, get your license, and I'll help you. Because I already know this. I already understand this particular product, this game. I understand it. I'll show you how to do it. And then maybe we help you promote yourself from a independent agent. And she took me on it. I said, study for the test. You have to take an exam, study for the test. I'll never stop doing it because here she's fairly new in this country. English is her second language, not her first. And she, as smart as, and I have so much respect for her because she took the course, which is for anybody that is licensed already in this particular industry, we know how hard it is to study 27 chapters, right? And now, mind you, study them in the language that's not your first. She conceptually translated everything. Genius, right? Takes her test. Took her a couple of tries. Didn't matter how many she was. Remember, failure doesn't matter because you just keep on trying because eventually you're gonna succeed. She didn't pass it the first couple of tries. So what? I said, take it again. And it's funny because she took it in English, and then it was on the third try because she studied concept in English, even though she translated in Spanish to understand concept. But it wasn't until the third try that she did it in Spanish that she passed, right? So here's what I didn't know was that her getting her license, today I see it, but I didn't know then that this was going to be the beginning of our journey of Benefits Concierge Group. I never would have thought. I actually thought this is my way to teach her what the business I'm already in. I work corporate America. She's an independent agent. We're both in the same business, but I'm more corporate. She's more independent. And we're both going to find our paths with it. So now I'll take you fast forward. She starts to get a little wet in the business, starts to build a little book of business, right, for herself. I'm struggling with the company I was with. And I said, I'm either going to get fired soon because I'm not selling and I'm not meeting numbers, right? And I wasn't meeting numbers for several reasons. I was uncomfortable putting people in a product that to me didn't make sense, wasn't meeting their needs. So ultimately, I was a liability to the corporate side. And I knew that my time eventually was gonna come up, right? For me to not be there anymore. It was what it was. But to me, that was kind of the beginning of what today is Benefits Concierge Group. My wife is already now an independent broker. I'm struggling to get job offers. And at this point, I had to make a decision because I felt my time was coming up with the company I was with. And I kind of didn't share this, but I worked for two companies a year and a half each in Medicare. One was a smaller outfit. Another one was a more national player in our industry. And at this point, I was with the national player. And I knew my number was up. I was a liability for them for whatever the reasons were. And I wasn't getting job offers. They weren't piling up on my inbox. Here's your job offer. No. So I took the leap of faith. Here's the risk I took. And this is what a lot of people sometimes are afraid to do. I went into some of my 401ks, and I'm under the age of 59 and a half. I liquidated some of my 401ks and I invested in a Sprinter and an RV from my first employer doing Medicare. And I invested in those tools because I had already used those tools with the current company I was with that eventually I felt was going to let me go. And they did let me go. But I went ahead and I took the leap of faith and I liquidated some of my funds, my capital. And I said, I'm going to go ahead and invest in my own brokerage, create a small little agency. I built this business plan where I was going to have maybe 10 agents working underneath us. Something very small, very modest, very humble, because nobody knew me in the game. Nobody knew me in the industry. And it wasn't until one day I was about to go sign off on the paperwork for the vehicles, these Sprinters, call them mobile offices in our industry, okay? And I get a job offer. My wife calls me, she goes, Frank, you just got an email with a job offer from one of the carriers. And I said, well, it's too late. And she goes, really? She threw me the question. She says, what are we going to live off of? Now, here's something I'm gonna, and everybody should know this. You only have 24 hours in a day. I don't care if you're Elon Musk, the close to being a trillionaire, first trillionaire in the world. He cannot buy another second of those 24 hours. You got 24 hours to work with. And I understood that. And I told her and I answered her, I said, I can't accept the offer. She says, what are we living off of? I said, well, I've got savings. I got a few more 401ks. I can lean on it if I have to, okay? I said, you're helping me out now because you're starting your own broker side. Little by little, we'll build it out. I said, but the bottom line is I have to go 100% in on my business because I understood the leverage I was going to have. And at this point, by the way, I had already been let go from the job. To be exact, I got let go on June 16th of 2016. That was kind of the beginning or the end of one thing, but the beginning of another. my new journey, which was Benefits Concierge Group. And my leap of faith was, you know what? I'm going 100% in. And I admire my wife because she supported me 1000% on this. She took the risk with me and saying, okay, I trust you, right? The trust was so much there, right? And today we laugh because we look back at that risk that I took of not taking a job offer, getting out of my comfort zone of corporate America and a stable salary, and saying, you know what, I'm going to go out this way. I'm going to build a business. I really believe in it. And I'm passionate about it. And I'm going to run. And everything got measured so right in the way we were doing it. I was telling the right story, what inspired me to do this, okay, which I share with people. I'm not afraid to share. To the degree where the business started to gain momentum, kind of month after month. And this part, I think like any business person out there, there's always going to be potentially something tragic that happens. September 7th of 2016, the month before, I purchased the vans, the mobile offices. I hire because I'm a big advocate of small business. It's the web or what makes this country the beautiful country it is. Small business, small entrepreneurs like myself, okay? And the millions that exist out there, okay? I went ahead and I hired a small company to do my graphic stuff, to wrap my vans with my brand and everything like that. I'm all excited. Unfortunately, this person took my money. As we enter, for anybody in the industry, as we enter annual enrollment period, which is what kind of sets the tone for our business in the fourth quarter for the following calendar year. And I get into a car accident. My vans aren't ready because this gentleman decided to take my money and not fulfill his services to my business. And it's not like I got a lot of money out there. So this is the risk that I'm taking kind of month after month with my business. I get into the car accident, I have surgeries, and it wasn't until April of the following year. And there's pictures of me with my neck brace from my surgery, with my neck surgery, and I had my, I forgot what it's called, but the thing to hold, I had shoulder surgery as well. I have pictures out on the street in the plain winter in April, it's still cold, me helping agents out because I wanted nobody to give me an excuse that this couldn't be done. I had just come out of surgeries and I'm over here helping people. And that's how I set the tone of my leadership and the risk that I was taking and the bet and gamble that I was taking on people that wanted to work around us because I was being inspired. My story was becoming very inspiring. Little by little, it's all organic. But that was the biggest risk that I took. I took the risk and I always thank God because my wife supported me on that particular risk. And today we laugh about it because we could go back the clock and say, man, you remember? It's like one of those. Do you remember? Beauties that we started, like most companies, everybody that follows technology, Google, Apple, all these companies always tell a story about starting in a garage. Well, I started my business out of my apartment. And we probably have documented pictures out there. I did a very poor job in taking pictures of my business, of our humbling beginnings, but we still remain humble. We got people doing presentations, doing certifications in our living room. 10, 15 people in our living room, just hearing us speak, hearing us present in our living room. This is the beginning of what makes us special, what makes us who we are today. So I always say this, right? And I think Mark Cuban says it best on Shark Tank, I'm no longer on it. But he always says, listen, when you always start a business, there's a lot of sacrifice. A lot of people only see what you are today, but they never see what you were then and what it took to get to where you are today. And believe me, that's letter A in the alphabet. And I'm only maybe on letter K. I'm not even at the midpoint of my alphabet. There's so much more impact that I'm waiting to still give out there, right? But sacrifice is probably one of the biggest things. Not having the luxuries of being able to eat at your favorite restaurant because you can't afford it. Why? Because you're putting all your effort, you're putting all your money to work on something you believe and you're passionate about. So with that takes a lot of kind of taking a step back on maybe things you were used to hopefully get back to the way you were at one point, a particular lifestyle, if you want to call it that. To me, a lot of sacrifice. I'm going to say something real funny because I have one of my insurance agents makes fun of me, but in a good way because I love him. He'll say, Frank, you remember when you used to wear the Puma sneakers and the Puma outfits? And now look what you wear. And I said, yeah, but we still remain humble. Let's always stay grounded. We can afford that stuff, but so what? That's not what really makes us. What really makes me is still what I was then, because it hasn't changed who I am today. Mac and cheese, I still don't eat filet mignon. I don't eat that. I'll still eat the mac and cheese. I still wear the hoodie. I don't shave. This is me. This is me. I'm going to give you me. This is who I am. And that's not going to change regardless of what kind of success I may have based on anybody's definition out there. I already told you what my success is. My success is how I impact. And in any of my businesses, I have to make sure that they align with how we're going to impact, how we impact community, how we make a difference in community. All my businesses have to be aligned that way. It's not how much money we're going to make. That doesn't even come out of my language. I don't even care. Well, sticking to my original successes, I think the foundation is going to be always the same, right? What am I passionate about? How am I going to make a difference? How am I going to impact? Finding maybe where there's a problem and then maybe finding a solution for it, but still sticking to my particular core values of transparency, honesty, right? Sticking to those missions, right? I got to be passionate about what I'm going to do, and I got to make a difference out there. If I'm not, and I'm just doing it for the money, I'm not even going to do it, because I'm not doing it for the money. The money, believe me when I say this, if you do it knowing that this is your passion, this is how you're going to serve people, community, the money's going to follow you. Guaranteed it will. And talk to any serial entrepreneur that's successful, that thinks the same way I think, because a lot of the successful ones think the way I'm explaining right now, and they say the same thing, very similar in the thought, right? So I would have to. I can't say what business I would get into. I'm not sure yet. Right now, let's just say this: I have a business that's working, and I'm now starting other businesses from zero. But I'm aligning the same core values, the same foundation to those businesses. Now I've got an advantage. I've got a business that works right now, and I try to leverage that directly or indirectly to some of my other businesses, whether it's my foundation, whether it's my co-working space, whether it's my investments company. So they all have to, or companies that I'm investing in, they all have to, one way or another, I have to directly or indirectly be able to impact them. So if I had nothing at this point, I'm still going to go back and say, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. How can I impact? Where are we finding a problem? And what solution can I bring to the problem? Who am I serving? Why am I serving them? And I got to feel passionate about it. As long as I'm serving, I know I'm going to be passionate, because that's part of my DNA anyway. It's not be chasing the money. Remember, if I serve and I do it right this way, the money will follow me. So I'm not even worried. But I got to find this, because this is what's going to wake me up in the morning. It's not the money that's waking me up. It's this that's waking me up. Money's going to make them very happy. That's shallow. It's not. And for anybody that says it, I actually will pray for them, because I actually feel bad that they think in such a narrow way. In today's environment, people have mentored me today, people that are worth $500 million, people that are worth $1 billion, with all the money in the world. They don't have to work not 1 second of their life anymore. And they have had to soul search to find what? The big P word, the purpose. And as long as you find the purpose, you got to find that purpose. And a lot of people don't find a purpose. And they think that money's the purpose. No, money's not the purpose. Money makes things easier for us, but money always has to move. It's always moving. So we got to find, taking a step back, I think we got to, a lot of people don't put their heart into, they put their mind, and they may be smart and may be creative on how to make money and how to engineer making money. I applaud them. Great. I've been able to engineer money in a very different way, and it's serving community, understanding that that's the way it had to be done. It fills my soul. I feel happy about it. I wake up in the morning for it. That would have been my roadmap, my platform. If I had to go back to the drawing board, that's part of it. That's what's going to be written on my drawing board. It's going to be that. If I had to start over. Well, you have to try to begin with. Some people don't try. So if you don't try, what are we looking forward to? What kind of success are we looking forward to if we don't even try? A lot of people are afraid. And sometimes let's start with being afraid, because being afraid doesn't let you try, right? You have to try, and you have to try in many ways. Take a stab, take a risk, Don't be afraid to fall, get back up. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask for assistance. Have other people mentor you. Get coached. Let's not be afraid. Go out. Again, I'm going to tell you kind of the way I work. I'm a student to life. I'm always learning. I'm a sponge of information. I love to learn from those that have had their own successes. And let's define it. They've had their own financial success, but they haven't, in their own definition, they don't feel successful. They're financially successful, but there's something still missing on this pillar right here. And I think as long as you can connect with that piece, and you really gotta, this is deep stuff. And a lot of people may go for seminars or whatever, because they're trying to find themselves. You know what I mean? To maybe discover this that they haven't discovered. I'm still discovering. Don't get me wrong. I told you, I'm a student of life. I'm still going through my own journey. I haven't introduced this to anybody, but I have a podcast called The Pursuit of Happiness that I recorded our first season, and it's still archived. And it's really kind of my own journey of my own pursuit of my own happiness, which little by little I'm getting in touch with. I've had quite a few, actually. I think my biggest failure wasn't because I failed and I lost financially, but it was more because it affected my parents. It was an investment my dad went into together, and we lost all, especially my parents. They lost a great portion of their savings, kind of life savings, right? You know, at their age at that point, being able to recover from that kind of loss was a burden for me. It was a tough one for me to swallow. For many years, it was, you always try to bounce back from that, right? But I took that and, once again, it's taking failures, learning from them to better yourself and leverage yourself later. And I took a lot of those experiences that I took from that particular failure in that business that my dad and I went into together as a family, to allow me to interact the way I do with, whether it's my own staff, whether it's public in general, allows me to really take a very different approach on how my ego's in check at all times. There is no ego. I'm no better than nobody out there. And unfortunately, when I had that business with my dad, I was very young. I was 29, coming from New York and relocating to Florida. And there's always this attitude about New Yorkers that, hey, you're a New Yorker, the capital of the world, you make it there, you make it anywhere. Well, what a rude awakening that was. Because I got humbled very quick. 3 years and I got very humbled. But take it a step further was really the impact that it had on my parents. It caused a lot of turmoil in my family, unfortunately. And, we're in a better place today. Not just myself, my immediate family, but my own family and my relationship with my parents, my sister works for me. Us as a core group, as a nucleus, we're a lot more stronger today. But I think that had to happen, or it happened. It didn't have to happen, but it happened, and it only made us stronger. But it took time for it to make us all stronger as a unit. I don't like delving much into that story, but that is a part of my life that unfortunately played a huge role in who I am today, how I conduct my business today, how I interact with people, how I stay grounded. I can have it today and tomorrow not have anything. And I recognize that in today's world. So, you know what? I have a lot of conviction and I have a lot of confidence. So even though I may doubt something or I may question something, if there's one thing about me, I've never felt I was a leader, but I never felt I was a follower with anybody out there. I may listen and I may see people, what works for some and what doesn't work for others, what made some people fail, what made other people maybe successful in their own journey, right? I think my own self-confidence doesn't allow me to doubt. And I'm going to bring something that a lot of people, I hope people will bring this element into their own lives. I'm a very spiritual individual. I don't say religion, but I'm very in touch with my spiritual side. And my faith is very blind. When something is supposed to work and happen, it's going to happen. And it's not going to stop. When something isn't, at some point there's going to be roadblocks that are giving you the message that you either have to pivot, you have to tweak, because if you continue to go this path, you may stumble, you may fall, which could create doubts, right? But my spiritual side is so in touch and so strong that it allows me, It just kind of illuminates a light for me. And it allows me to pivot, so I trust that. Can we say, oh, do you doubt yourself still going in that direction? There was a signal somewhere that told me I needed to pivot. And that's me believing in my spiritual side that allows me to then pivot and not go a direction where maybe I'm going to maybe doubt myself. No. So I have so much trust in my faith that I let that dictate me a lot in the way I make my moves. I use this a lot in business nowadays when I speak in my language. I always say, listen, you are going to meet so many people out there. That's going to be a part of your journey. You have to embrace it. But there's people that have good intentions for you, and there's people that don't. And because I believe so much and I have this blind faith about how God just has something written for me, the people that don't have the right intentions for me, at some point, they're going to be removed from my path. And the ones that have to remain, year after year after year after year after, they're still with me. They're still with me. That becomes then later on in life, they become your friends. That becomes your trusted inner circle. Your inner circle is not born on the same day you met them. It gets developed over time, over trust, over actions. Kind of a long-winded answer to the question, but it brings you into a different element of how I carry myself, how I work, my mechanism, my mind, my heart, my soul, how I work, and how I implement that into the way I work in my business. And don't be surprised. I'm not the only one that says it. There's a lot of people that bring that spiritual side and that faith into the game. And that makes them, I connect big time with them. They're mentors of me today, for me. That's such a synergy and such a chemistry when you're dealing with people like that. Because guess what? You're on the same page. We all have the right intentions out there. That's a beautiful inner circle right there. Natural. They get in their own way. They think they got the answers to everything, or they're supposed to have the answers to everything. And the business can't function without them being so controlling and all that stuff. So they tend to be their own stumbling block. They get in their own way. Let me branch out a little more on that thought, because it's such an important thought. I've had to get out of my own way in my own business. I've had to trust people that I've hired now. I've had to empower them, because we all have something to contribute out there. But if I think that I'm the only mind that can control that business, and everybody's just going to say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, my business is not going to work. I had to get out of that particular way of thinking. And it took a little time to do, right? And for most of us, I think we have to accept that. We have to trust and delegate, allow people room to work, to be creative. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make, is that they get in their own way of allowing other people that work around them and trusting them, empowering them. They're in their own way because they feel that, oh, I'm the answer to everything. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're not. So I really trust everybody that's around me, and I trust them blindly. They keep my mechanism going. They still lean on me for certain things, but because I'm still kind of the visionary of the business. But at the end of the day, I encourage ideas, bring them in. We all have something to give out there. Now, my independent agents, I also encourage them, because they have their own businesses that they're trying to build by us hosting them and sponsoring them. And I tell them, bring me ideas. I'll invest in your ideas if we believe in it. And if the idea doesn't make any sense, I'll tell you. And if I think it makes sense and we don't get the result or the outcome we wanted, it doesn't even matter. The important thing is that we took a risk and we took a gamble. But we felt good about it. Our hearts and everything was in place. And we're hoping to get the best result out of it. For some reason, clockwork, and this is, I think, because of my results of my surgeries, I'm up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm going to say 3:30, but when I look at my clock, it's 3:23, 3:24, 3:25. Almost religiously, it's always that time. It's almost like my body's already used to that, right? I wake up. It's so quiet. You hear the earth is so quiet. It's beautiful. It's like, wow, downtime. My phone's not ringing. My alarm's not on. It allows me to get caught up. It allows me to just kind of take a breather, let my mind work quietly. It's when my creative juices go to work on things that I have pending that I got to work on. I get caught up on emails, on texts. Some of my agents say to me, Frank, do you sleep? Because I got a message from you like 3:30 in the morning. I got a message from you at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, because I get up at 3:23 in the morning. My body clockwork just gets up. It allows me to look at what my agenda is going to be for the next day, prepare for it, whether it's my meetings or what do I got coming up. I have to still continue to get my rest because if there's something, and I learned this from Jeff Bezos, he says that he has to sleep 8 hours a day because in order for him to make decisions and the right decisions, his mind has to be rested. Because if his mind is not rested, he may make a wrong decision that could be very costly to the entire enterprise of Amazon. I take that to heart because I got to get my rest, except my rest kind of gets cut, right? So I go to sleep typically 11 o'clock at night. I get up around 4.5 hours later, get caught up on emails. I read the markets. So the market has already opened up on the other side of the world. Stock market is what I'm being specific to. I already know if the market's going to open up well or if it's not, right? So I've already read part of the news that's about to affect us in the US. I look at my schedule, I look at my agenda, I look at things that I still haven't gotten caught up on, things that I have pending that I have to be creative on. I get caught up on text, emails, and then I start to get a little tired. I also, believe it or not, maybe 3-4 times a week, I listen to my mass on YouTube, my daily mass, because the eulogy brings a message and it allows me to wake up with a message hours later when I wake up to start my day, my official day. So I listen to mass, typically about 30, 32 minutes, but I'm trying to listen to it for the eulogy and the message of the day is really what I'm trying to do, because that sparks a little energy in me that I go to sleep with. It's just positive energy at all times. I tend to fall asleep again around 5 o'clock, and then I sleep for another 2.5 hours, maybe 3. I get up at 8, and I start my journey. I start typically from my house or my apartment, depending if I'm in Orlando or New York, and then I head to the office. My day starts pretty early, very early in the morning. And then I have my meetings, have my staff, move agenda forward. Any inch we move forward is progress, in my opinion. But that's typically how my days start. Some meetings I have are either staff meetings or meetings internally within my agency, or some of my meetings may be with outside investors that I'm working with on other projects, but always something that's a forward movement, always a forward movement in terms of my agenda. I'm still polishing the word discipline. That's something I'm still trying to polish. Gotten very good at it, right? Because you have to be in order to be a successful business owner, to run a business, to be visionary. You got to have kind of that clear mind, being disciplined and trying to move an agenda forward, and then being able to teach others, teach by example to others how to be disciplined, how to have the right mindset, being positive, not being negative type thing. I have people that I'm not your best administrative person. And to be a successful businessman, you don't have to be, because I'm not one. But I got people around me that keep me organized, that keep me in line so that we continue to move forward. So I surround myself, as I said before, people that I trust, that help me, that assist me, compliment me correctly so that we can continue to move our agenda forward. My spiritual side plays the biggest part in controlling that factor for me. I don't get frazzled often. People say, how do you stay so cool, calm, and collected at all times? Like, you don't seem like you're stressed. We all go through stress. I just don't show it. But we have our worries. We have our uncertainties about things that could happen. Our industry is going through some of it right now, some disruptions that create uncertainties for us. I think what we have to be as leaders is to be able to identify those uncertainties and staying on top of what's happening so that we can pivot so that we can hopefully, any risk in anything that can affect our business, we've been able to mitigate it as best as we can by acting as early as we can. So many people, I've understood this, and I take this responsibility on my shoulders, but I don't let it stress me out, because I've been able to now prove it myself to my entire body of agents where the trust is there. They understand my discipline. They understand how on top I am of my game. And I'm still learning to continue to stay on top, right? It allows me to stay focused, because I have so much responsibility for so many people right now. I always say I don't have children. We didn't have the fortunate, if you want to call it virtue of having kids, my wife and I. So my extended family, aside from my immediate family, like my parents, my brother, sister, is my agency. The people that surround me day in and day out. The people I'm in touch with every day in and day out. This is my family, and I feel I have a responsibility to that family. That keeps me very focused because I have a responsibility, and I don't want to fail that responsibility at all times. My spiritual side keeps me not nervous, mitigates my anxieties, because if I can't control something, why should I stress about it? If I can control it, great. But if I can't, I can't impact the outcome. It is what it is. And I may just have to hopefully understand what the outcomes could be so I can hopefully mitigate what those outcomes could be in the best way possible. So as long as we're proactive and not reacting to things, so I'm always trying to stay on top of my game. And I think the industry has caught on to that I'm very engaged, whether it's politically, I want the information real time so I can act. I'm now going to implement other things in my business that are going to help me also mitigate my stress. And it's meeting with my staff more frequently so that we can understand where the business is going and what tweaks we can make early. So if I can meet not monthly, not quarterly, but I can meet weekly, it allows me to pivot and make decisions that can affect an outcome earlier than later that can affect us much later and have a bigger impact for us negatively. So it's something I've learned, and I've learned it from people that are just masters at scaling and conducting business, very successful in business. So these are little things that I'm learning as part of my discipline and learning and letting other people coach me. I embrace that. I embrace other people teaching me. I'm okay with that. I don't have the answers. I don't, and that allows me to keeping myself very grounded, allows me to stay focused, not apply so much stress on myself, react to the right decisions, hopefully get the right outcomes. I trust my team very much, and their opinions mean a lot to me when we have meetings. So that keeps me focused. It's part of it. Discipline is saying that, say you have something you want to do, and it's making sure you take that first step, put an action plan around it, and executing on it. But making sure you execute correctly on it. That the outcomes are not going to harm people. You're hoping to impact people, serve them right. But it's making sure the execution is there and you're moving the agenda forward for the right reasons, for the right impact, right? So discipline to me is making sure that, if there's something that just at 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning when I'm up, something pops into my head, something innovative comes to my head, it's being able to then bring it to the forefront and execute on it, and being disciplined to execute on it for the right reasons, with the right elements, with the right passion, right? And staying the course, making sure that you execute on it. So I think another element of discipline is having the right mindset in how we carry ourselves forward. And I think that's very important. There's a difference between people that attract certain negativity or their way of thinking is negative. To me, the glass, whether it's half empty, is always going to be half full. And my mindset is that always. I'm always going to find something positive in the way people speak to me. I'm not looking for the negatives. The negatives don't bring anything. If anything, I'm going to help improve the negatives, the weaknesses. But I'm always going to find the strengths. And we're going to bring out the best to hopefully get those right outcomes. So that's a mindset that we have to have. And I come across people that the first thing they may say to me is just, while I'm seeing something positive in something that occurred and we're both looking at it, they find the negative immediately. And I'm finding the positive. And I'm like, why was that your first thought? Did you not think that, look at this outcome right here, look at this that happened that was so positive? Why was the negative thing the first thing that caught your attention first? You got to be so disciplined to be able to change that mindset, shift it. And it may take time. It's okay. But here's the word discipline again. Can you be disciplined enough to change and want to change that particular mindset? Because if you don't, then you're still going to be stuck here. So you got to have the discipline to say, hey, I want to start thinking that way. How do I shift? How do I change my way of thinking? How do I change my mindset? Why am I thinking this way? What are my traumas? You may have to go so back on things that might have affected you in the past. Reconcile with those first to be able to change mindset and be positive. I bring up being confident, and I think at a very early on in my schooling career, I was a part of this finance academy, and I was around financiers, executives for major firms on Wall Street and all that stuff. And I would just listen to them at an early age. And there's things that I was able to kind of incorporate or understand, not understand maybe at that point, but today I remember those terms and I'm like, they make sense. I was too young to maybe understand or process them. But I think in your consciousness or in mind, they stayed there. And they're being brought out now, things that early I learned or were being taught to me. They're now coming out, right? And they're coming out in a positive way because everything that was being taught to me then was positive. So my attitude became that. Maybe for some, I don't think I have traumas in my life. You know what I mean? And if I do, I've been able to canalize them in a very different way. I've been able to channel them very differently, right? So that they become not negative stuff in my life, but positive things in my life. I try to influence people in the best way possible so that they can hopefully change and be disciplined in that mindset. But mindset is obviously so I think a trait that plays a big role in discipline. I don't doubt myself a lot, but but I think we all have insecurities somewhere. And one insecurity that I've had, and I'm glad that I'm going through this filming, giving people my journey. I'm bringing people into my inner world. I'm bringing people into my heart right now. I had a doubt to do this. This has been 2.5 years in the making. And I now had to, I've had great people around me that have, for the last 2 years, said, Frank, you have such a beautiful story to tell. You need to tell the world. Why don't you? I doubted myself on that. So we speak about doubts, right? About certain self-confidences, right? I've got a lot of self-confidence. But this is one area where I still wasn't comfortable. I still didn't feel I was enough proven. And seeing the success of my business year after year doing so well, I'm like, wow, you know what? I feel more comfortable now. Let me take the dust off my shoulders. Let me take the cobwebs off of me. And now I took this step to share with everybody what I've done, how I can help, how can I mentor, how can I bring you into, not my business per se, but how can I coach you? And I'm willing on helping you and guide you so that you can elevate your game as well. But it was a doubt that I had at first, and I had to, over the last 2.5 years, take that leap of faith into something I wasn't comfortable with. And I'm sure, like myself, there's many others that probably don't feel the same comfort zone. But I bring you into my world, and let's get out of it, and let's take the journey together. But that's something I always had a doubt with, was kind of doing this that I'm doing today. I feel proud of myself and proud of my team that helped me kind of build that confidence to say, you know what, Frank, do it. Do it. My social media team elevates my confidence. They're like, Frank, we're going to help you right through the journey. We're going to help you through it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And right now, as we're filming and we're going through this journey, we're going to have so much film that we're going to be doing. I know that my confidence is just going to be so natural at that point. But this was something I doubted to do at one point. I really had a lot of doubts to do it. So time to scale. Well, scaling for my business came just naturally with a problem that I had in my business. So I had a problem in my business very early, year 2. I didn't know that my story about what inspired me to do the business was going to gravitate and was going to connect with so many people in our business, right? People that are agents. And as I started to tell the story, more and more agents started to get referred to us. And it became this snowball effect. And the snowball became bigger and bigger. And I'm like, oh, wow. What I didn't have structure in my business. I didn't have training. People depended on us to give them solutions so they can go out and find sales. People that can help. Training, understand what they were going to go offer, understand what they were going to talk about. That became a problem because we were growing. And if we kept on growing at that level, at that pace, without an infrastructure, we were going to fail. Failure was imminent. That was going to happen. So what I did was I made what I would call a a key point or a key decision in my business, which is to go out to 5 of my agents that were starting to bring me people and referring agents to our business. And I said to them, I said, hey, listen, if I bring you into my structure of an agency, you're bringing me agents. Do you mind if I put those agents underneath you and you mentor them? And I delegate and I share a part of what comes into our agency with you. Out of 5, 4 said yes. The problem was that those 4, just like myself, we weren't structured. So it still became a problem in my business. It took such a while to develop that today I have over 100 agencies. I think it's 130 something, right? Because we became masters. It's scaling, but we became masters at developing agencies. And having them understand the difference between just being an agent and discipline as an agent, and then being the mindset of an agency owner or a business owner. 2 different mindsets. I'm an entrepreneur, I told you. I'm not an agent. I came from that. I learned it. I learned the nuts and bolts of this piece, the details of it, and I can teach it. But now I can teach it from a scaling standpoint on how to be a business. How to then teach others to do what we're good at. So the turning point, it was funny because the turning point was a problem we had that allowed us to, a decision I made that became what our new model or a model in our business, which is to develop agencies, have them grow up the ladder, have them help others become agencies. And so from a problem became something good for us. Now we're very structured today. I got staff. We're very structured in the way we run our business today. And I take that same discipline into my other businesses as well now. I just carry that same DNA, if you want to call it, those same qualifiers or those same qualifications into my other businesses nowadays. So in year 2 of our business, my wife and I had to sit. We spoke about it. We're husband and wife. She's my business partner. And we had to talk about, we noticed that the business was starting to get traction. It started to get momentum. And we weren't structured. That required a commitment of growth for us to continue growing. Or do we want to just kind of stop where we're at, where we're comfortable, and that we can manage? We had to think about that. Because that was it's like, okay, a lot of people are going to depend on us. A lot of people, we're going to be responsible for so many people, their development, how they're going to grow, our knowledge. Do we want to take that on? We literally took 1 week at work, at home, on the pillow, husband and wife, talking about this, making a list, pros, cons. But the most important thing was, are we going to be disciplined enough to make the commitment to move forward with this responsibility? And ultimately we said yes. We said we want to take this on. We knew we had so much to give, and we were able to in that week understand that we had a lot of inspiration out there. We were affecting people's reactions and just how passionate we were about things, that we said, how are we going to cut this train short? How are we going to cut this ride short? And I said, let's continue to move forward. This is why we got into business. Why are we going to stop? We had a big message to give out there. And this is right now, this filming, these reels, what I'm going to share with the world is a part of all that, because it started back then, year 2, and we've been able to carry through with it. And we see the results nowadays. And it hasn't stopped. Thank God we've been blessed with our growth, but our growth is so healthy. It's impactful. It's beautiful. I sometimes feel, and I hope I'm not dreaming, I tell my wife in a funny way, when am I going to wake up from this dream? I hope I'm not dreaming. I hope there's nothing for me to wake up from. It's real life that I'm living. And I hope that I'm going to be able to impact others to do the same thing. The word discipline plays a big role. Okay. Although you always got to look at an opportunity, and I'm going to give a few examples of opportunities, right? I get agents that bring us opportunities, not to invest in other businesses, but opportunities for us to help them grow. Those are very different kinds of opportunities. I normally don't say no to my agents. I don't. I have a hard time saying no to my family because I don't care if I make a mistake. We're going to learn from that mistake. And that's a lesson I'm going to be able to go over with them. How do we do? So now we know for next time, we're going to be smarter in how we scout opportunities, right? And these are opportunities within my business. Now I'm going to take you to a different discipline when I invest in businesses, because that's what I'm going through right now. My discipline is very different. Number one, it has to align very closely with what I'm inspired to do. Like I know what inspired for me to do my brokerage, my health insurance business. It was the underserved community in Medicare, the seniors, poor community out there. I still have to be very well aligned in any business I do with the same format. Who are we serving? Are we going to serve people that we're going to be able to educate and lift their livelihood, lift their game, whatever it is? Am I going to be able to leverage my current business to help lift this business? My story here has to align very similar in language to my other business. And if they don't, then I may say no. And I'm going to give you a great example. I'm in a few investment communities now, and I get pitched deals in our investment community, and the ones I evaluate are the ones that I know I'm comfortable with for me to invest in, and that I know I can align. My core values are in line with my current business, and they're in line with those businesses too. That's a discipline I carry. I just don't throw my money wherever. So I'm very disciplined in that sense. I stay very methodical. I also run it through my wife, who's my other set of ears, to make sure that, she's okay with the risk we may take. And thank God, understanding her qualities and her DNA, she'll question me and she'll say, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, so far our decisions have been good. I don't think God is going to steer me the wrong way. And if I don't feel right, then I'm not. I can walk away." So I came across an opportunity, and the guy, something rubbed me the wrong way about the opportunity. And I may lose out, and I'm okay with that. But when somebody tries to pressure me into an opportunity, a supposed opportunity, I don't feel right. It has to come natural to me, has to align. This particular opportunity doesn't necessarily align per se with what I do. It actually really doesn't. I didn't see the alignment. I may still invest something just to contribute, but it doesn't align. It would be a little off of my current discipline in the way I run businesses. So I learned through a community called Empire, which is part of this Aspire community I've joined. A gentleman by the name of who I admire, and I'm going to have to let him know that I'm even going to mention his name today. But his name is Eddie Wilson. And he's got this community called the Empire Community, which teaches you about scaling, teaches you about platforms. But one thing that he introduced, which holds so true into my business, without me knowing it, he teaches something called predictive index. And there's 4 different quadrants to predictive index. My business has worked because the people that work for me, we don't all fall into one quadrant in our skills, in our personalities, in our passion. We don't. We all fell into pretty much all of the quadrants except for one. And the one quadrant none of us fell into was the innovative and the maverick quadrant. And some people have said to me, it's like, "Frank, but aren't you the innovator, aren't you?" And I'm like, well, I didn't fall into that. But maybe I am. Maybe I'm playing a hybrid role. Maybe I'm the one that fits in there. I'll peek in there a little bit. But everybody fell into the other quadrants, which supports our infrastructure in our business. And I'm going to give you an example. I have engineers that work in my business. And I started off with my VP of operations, which is my wife. She's an engineer herself, and her staff are all engineers. They're very administrative. They're very process efficient. They're not the marketing and sales people. They're not the ones that are putting their face out there to the public. That's more my sales support, myself, my sister who's my project manager. They fit into that quadrant. So the balance exists so beautifully where we never converge or we never butt heads because our quadrants are filled except for that maverick innovative quadrant, which maybe I fill in a little bit of, right? And it's the business, and it's the reason why understanding that predictive index formula our business has worked without me even knowing it. The people we have work for us just fit beautifully into our culture without us even knowing it when we interviewed and all that stuff, right? Something that's also very important about this is this. A lot of people look at resumes and they look at skills. They look at past experience. That's kind of the traditional way of doing things. In today's environment, especially with the Gen Zs, right? You have to look at what inspires a human being to do things. What inspires their behavior? If you could connect that with their skills and hone in on both of those, you're getting the best out of that individual. The worst thing you can do is put that individual in a scenario just based on experience into something they could care less about. Something that doesn't really move them. Because all it is for them is just a job. That's just paying them so they can go pay bills. But what if you added a different element to it that's more human now, which is now passion, inspiration? If you can connect that with skills, you're going to get the best out of anybody that works for you. So I'm now starting to learn that and incorporate that so that we can get the best out of our team, empower our team to be the best, to give back the best of who they are as human beings. And that's where our business has been working. That formula just converges nicely for us. It's not forced. It naturally happens for us. Good question, because I never considered myself a leader, but I also never considered myself a follower. It was a wake-up call for me. My own business forced me to understand over its evolution that agents, as my business started to really prove itself, and as we started to prove ourselves as business owners, that more people were leaning on us for advice, for mentorship, for coaching. It's almost like, you know what? You've got the right answers. So we're going to you because you got the experience. So when they put that responsibility on you, my mindset had to shift, something I wasn't used to. I'm kind of in my own corner, doing my things, being creative, trying to push my business forward. I tried delegating. I let other people take responsibility for certain things, right? I had to then look at my business very differently and look at my responsibility and how people were looking at me now. They weren't looking at me as just the principal that started or the founder of Benefits Concierge Group. They started seeing me as, oh, you're very successful. You have a lot to offer. You don't realize, but you're an influence out there. You're an influence to all of us. Look what you've been able to do for us. I've been able to buy my first home. I've been able to take a risk because you helped me push my way around that. You pushed me along that assembly line. I was doing it naturally. I didn't think myself as the role of a leader doing that. I had to now understand what leadership was and how people were looking at me to be their leader, to give them the answers. The one beautiful thing about being a leader is you don't always have to have the answer. But as long as you surround yourself with the right people, they can help you, the right resources, they can help you hopefully get not the right answer, but hopefully the answer that's going to be the right one at some point. But we don't know if the answer is right or wrong yet. We don't know. Unless you look at the sky and they tell you it's not green, it's blue. That's what it is, right? Those are facts, right? But in business, sometimes you don't know what's going to be a good decision, what's going to be a bad one. You don't know. You have to kind of test the waters out. I had to, at one point, somebody that I brought in that I thought I was going to be able to delegate more of my responsibility and more be a little bit of my face out there. What I thought were my objectives. I prolonged it more than I needed to. Hard decision because I thought on paper everything looked good to go, but it didn't. And I was forced to say, in a nice way, because I now have that person, and I'm going to throw a brand new business word out there for everybody. I shouldn't say it's brand new, but at least in our world it is. But something I use in my business called fractional services. I use them as a fractional vendor to my business because I understood what his strong suits were, his strong skills. And I now use him for that as a consultant for me, but not in the original role that I brought him into. And to have that powwow with him, that talk, was tough. It's not my comfort zone. I want to make sure, to me, I want it to be a happy family, but it isn't always going to be that. And unfortunately, you sometimes have to break a heart. I mean, which also breaks mine. It breaks mine as well. But I found, thank God, I found a happy medium on that one, a really happy medium. And he still consults for me on things that I know he does a really good job with for me. And from a fractional standpoint, I've got other fractional services in my business that are just part of my dugout, that for any of my businesses, they can go ahead and play a role on any of my businesses, not just Benefits Concierge Group. But I can bring them out and say, hey, listen, I need you to do this for me for this particular business. This is what I'm looking for. Just a new concept in business that's worked. I learned this from one of my mentors who I sat down with for a whole day in his office in Miami, Damon John from Fubu, Shark Tank. When I first got introduced to the whole fractional services idea and all that stuff, I didn't know I was already using it, but it got brought out and it got brought to me in such a different aspect that I was like, oh man, wow, I can leverage that I'm already doing for my other businesses that I'm going to open. Great. It's like magic, right? Be open-minded, to not be afraid to ask someone for a second opinion, whether it's another entrepreneur. You're obviously stuck and you don't have the answer right now. So you're going to get out of a comfort zone that you might not be used to. Go outside of that. Be creative. Go to an expert. Get a second opinion. Go to a mentor. Go to a coach. That's going to now help you open up your mind, open up maybe your heart to figure out what's causing you to be stuck. And by the way, great question, because a lot of business owners, there's different thresholds in terms of business for growth. The toughest part of business is getting it off the ground when you have no revenue at all. You might have debt. Getting it off the ground and getting maybe from zero revenue to maybe $1 million or 1.5. Just getting it through that journey is tough enough. Then going from, say, 1 million, 1.5 to 3 million is another step. That's growth. What ends up happening is that a lot of business owners get so comfortable living such a good life at $3 million that for them to go ahead and continue growing means what? That they're going to have to get out of a particular comfort zone. They're going to have to now bring in the right staff, the right trustworthy people that they can work around, to delegate, to give responsibility to, because they feel that the business runs because of them. I've been able to get out of that and know if I was going to scale my business was going to continue to grow. If I was going to open up more time out of the 24 hours that I have in a day to open up my other businesses that are going to allow me to impact, I needed to have the right people around me to be able to delegate. I have to trust them. So if I didn't get out of that zone, I would have still been stuck at 3 mil. So obviously I'm making more than that now, right? I was able to grow because I made that decision to get out of my own way. I'm not the solution to the business at all times. Everybody around me is my solution to my business. And we've been able to scale the business beautifully. And it's opening up time for me to go invest in other businesses that will complement this particular business right here, Benefits Concierge Group. Get out of your own way, bring other people, experts, be open-minded. That's a mindset and a discipline that you need to incorporate in your business, but you might not have it at that point, which means that you got to get out of there, have others help you to create that discipline so that your business can now continue to grow and go forward. So, but you got to set goals and objectives, right? But I think even before that, and I mentioned this a lot, you have to first identify, okay, you're going to go into business for what purpose? What's your purpose, right? So my purpose is, okay, I want to serve, this is the product I want to go out and offer. Okay, for what reason? You got to have a business plan. Listen, all the structures and all that stuff, a business plan, certain metrics, certain thresholds, you got to do that. You got to do a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and going forward if you want to go even further, right? You have to understand why you want to go into business to begin with. And if your only reason for doing business is because you want to make a lot of money, you better go back to the drawing board, because that shouldn't be the only reason you're going into business. You got to find a different purpose. Why am I going into business? What solution am I bringing? Who am I serving? How am I going to help? How am I going to make a difference? How is this going to be a positive, or how is this going to up somebody's game? What is it that you're going to bring to the public? Because the last thing you're going to go out and do is mislead, offer something that's a bad product, something that you're cheating people out of. That's not the reason you got to go into business. So you have to first find these core values here, understand them, have a mission and a vision behind it, and then start executing on it. Now, You can invest into your business if you have the ability to, so that you can grow the business fast in your first year and get it going. I didn't have that kind of resource. So my business really, if anything, grew organically. And I grew it organically 1 month at a time. I'll tell you what I was able to do, and it was kind of predictive. Because now understanding numbers, my business was very predictable. By my third year, I was cash flow positive. By my fourth year, I was profitable. And I was able to see how monitoring the numbers. So you got to understand numbers, as one of my other favorite people, Marcus Lemonis, always says. It's about process, it's about product, and it's about people. And in process and product, you got to understand your numbers in that journey. And he's obviously about human capital, which I've mentioned quite a few times already. I take that and I take that to heart when I pitch, and he's one of my idols when it comes to business investment. I was able to meet him once, and I was like floored because he's one of my idols out there. But in your first year is really understanding why you're going to go into business, putting it on paper. My whole business started on an idea on a napkin. I was sitting with my cousin at the dinner table. He's an economics professor and a finance professor and business development. And I told him on a napkin, I want to do this. There was no discipline in what I do. I was just drawing it out, putting my ideas on a piece of napkin. And then came everything else that came in structuring that idea. So first comes an idea, then the passion behind it, why the idea and why the passion behind it. And then comes all the executionable stuff behind it. You're putting it on paper, understanding what the cost, operational, all that stuff, what comes around it. How are you going to roll out your business? How are you going to market it? Everything else that comes with structuring an actual business, right? So that's kind of probably the first thing I would tell people is understand why you're going to do it to begin with. So listen, we all say 2020 hindsight. If what I know today I knew then, I would have been successful doing my business in my 20s. That wasn't the case. I think I had to experiment. You kind of live a crazy life to some degree. Even though I had good people influencing me around me, but I just took a journey in trying to find my purpose. I love sales. I love consulting. I love all that. I always say that the toughest thing for any salesperson is finding the right product or service that you want to offer, that you feel passionate about. I don't want to go out and sell cars. I'm not passionate about cars. I got plenty of them, but I'm not passionate about cars. As a male, I'm not. I'm not tickled by that, right? I'm tickled by other things, right? I love my journey because my journey is full of ups and downs. You know, they say in sports, there's superstars, right? That are just born with the skills, have the discipline to practice, like a Kobe Bryant type thing, right? The late Kobe. And then there's people that are journeymen. I've always considered myself an underdog and a journeyman in life. Today, my role is very different. I'm not a journeyman now. I started a business that has, for our fortune and for whatever, has done very well. And it's allowed me to now branch out into other ways that I'm going to be able to impact now. I didn't know how I was going to impact in my 20s at a younger version of myself. Because at a younger version of myself, being part of a finance academy, what was taught to us was numbers. And you go out and find a good job and you're going to make money. That's what was taught. It's kind of your traditional systematic way of learning. That's not today's environment. It's far from today's environment. I wish what I could have taught myself to learn that money wasn't the motivator, but that being inspired and being impactful was going to be it. If I could turn back the clock and know that then, I would have been a golden child. I know it today, but I had to go through this whole journey just to get to where I'm at today. What legacy do I have to build? I've been asked that so many times. I've actually been said, Frank, so you're trying to build your legacy. I talk to a lot of my mentors, and this is the legacy you want to leave, for other generations. Well, I don't have any children. I've been told in business, you got to think about your exit strategy. You start the business, become successful. Eventually, you want to get out of it. In my year 2 of my business, I always got anecdotes and stories to tell, right? I had somebody from the Board of Education in New York ask me, what's your exit strategy? I was just starting out. And I was like, exit strategy? I'm only in New York serving the New York public in New York City. I said, I don't know if I'm looking to exit at any given point. I got 49 more states to go with this beautiful message, with how we're going to impact. Hopefully I live long enough, not to leave a legacy per se, but that my business continues to impact. And if that's what people want to define as legacy, then I guess that's my legacy, right? I try not to use that word, but I hopefully my business and what we were about, what we meant to do, and the people around me and the people that we continue to educate on it, we continue to carry that message through generations. You know, it won't be through my kids because I don't have any kids. So, but my family is my agents and hopefully people they bring in, and we'll be able to carry that through them. Whatever my vision was, I'll call it vision and a mission. I won't call it a legacy per se. So stay true and honest to yourself. Don't ever take a shortcut. No need. Serve public, serve community, serve humans. It's going to fulfill you a lot more. You're going to feel like the best human being on earth. Don't do it for the wrong reasons. Find the right reasons to do it, but always stay true here. A lot of people don't put this into the way they conduct business. They use this. Use them both. I make my decisions based on this almost all the time. And maybe this before this. If that's a message I got to give anybody, it's probably that, because that's what steers me every day. That's what moves me every day. So very different from the way most people would speak in business. So.